Congratulations, we've already made it to our final chapter in this course. You've done a tremendous job. Let's go ahead and wrap up with Chapter 16, discussing selected employment benefits and protections that employees have in the workplace. The beginning of the chapter starts out with the Fair Labor Standards Act. This came into effect because we needed to make sure that we are regulating what employees are receiving as wages and making sure that they are not working an excessive amount of hours without being compensated for that. So this came around in 1938 as part of the New Deal, which regulates the pay and hours worked for an organization. It really sets standards for minimum wage. We have minimum wage, which does increase with the cost of living over the years. I believe minimum wage is going up here pretty shortly to $10 an hour. I remember working for minimum wage at $4.50 an hour. And if you talk with people from generations past, they'll tell you they worked $4 a day. This is probably prior to any laws that we have in effect today, but something that we want to make sure that employers are being held to. Different industries have different standards, but we want to make sure that we keep employers safe and the people that they serve safe as well. We wouldn't want to have a surgeon going into his 37th hour of surgery without sleep. They wouldn't be able to do as good of a job. They would be more susceptible to any kind of workplace hazard, and they wouldn't be compensated for that time. We have different regulatory agencies in place today that make sure employers meet these minimum qualifications and exceed their policies and procedures, making sure that we're covering our employee from the whole, from compensation standpoints, offering benefits, have a safe working environment. So we dig a little bit further into that. Who is a covered employee? Anyone that works in an organization. There are different types of acts and different groups, different federal regulations that are required to meet organizations that are less than 20 employees, greater than 50 employees. We'll find that out a little bit later here. So when we're looking at wages, the concept of being salaried or being exempt, I don't know if any of you have ever had an exempt position. That is exactly what it sounds like. When you have an exempt position, you are exempt from overtime. This happens to be a lot of our management and supervisory positions. You tend to get paid a higher wage, but you also have that expectation that you will work until the job is done and you don't receive overtime for that versus your hourly employees. So if it takes you 12 hours to get the job done, you're still paid for 8. And that, again, happens in a lot of our management and supervisory positions. Child labor laws. These do vary state to state. The most common denominator is that a child cannot work in an organization until they are at least 16 years of age. There are some different qualifications. You can work for a family organization. There are different rules for farming. A lot of the hazardous jobs, you cannot be younger than 18 years of age, so you need to be a legal adult to do some of those. Work permits, something that a lot of young kids have these days, high school students, and they can work anywhere between, I think it's 13 years of age up to 15, 16 years of age when you need that work permit. You need your parent to sign off in the school that you're attending to say that you can add this in as well. That's a huge piece of legislation because we know 60 years ago we had children that were going to work all day long, 16-hour days, not going to school, bringing home close to nothing, and that's not being allowed at all anymore. That's why we have these regulatory agencies that really keep our organizations in check. There's a lot that we throw at you in this chapter. Looking at the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, this is job protected leave if you were to leave for any type of family situation, most notably if you have the birth of a child. If it's adopted, you can take time off to care for a spouse, child, immediate family member. Not all 12 weeks need to be taken simultaneously, but they need to be taken within a year's time. And most importantly, it is non-paid time, but job-protected leave nonetheless. Employers that have more than 50 employees need to adhere to FMLA. OSHA, that's something most of us are familiar with, either from a consumer standpoint or from an employer standpoint. The Occupational Safety and Health Act, an organization, an industry, an agency that comes along and makes sure our organization is as clean as it should be, that it is as safe as it should be, and that our employees are able to work in an environment that doesn't have as many hazards. They have a stat in here in the textbook that workers' compensation pays out $1 billion per week. What is workers' compensation? This is a type of insurance that organizations have that cover their employees in the event of an injury, accident, or death. But just the inception of OSHA itself has really brought down workplace injury claims. They say almost as much as 2/3. Tremendous statistic. Different types. This slide 13, look that up if you can. I had to look really tiny at my little slides here. Defenses to workers' injury claims. You can have different types of workers' comp claims, whether it was an incident that was caused by fault of the employer, by fault of an employee, or another employee that caused injury. And there are different types of routine inspections. When OSHA comes in, they will always come in based off of a tip or a phone call. Anyone can give them a call. Their information should be posted throughout the facility that says, if you see anything that's suspect, give us a call. We'll come out and do a routine safety inspection, investigation. Or for some of our more high-risk industries, they come on a consistent basis. Other provisions: workplace violence, zero tolerance for bullying, zero tolerance for any type of violence in the workplace. A lot of organizations will have that as part of their mission statement, vision statement, their internal rules, regulations, that they have a zero tolerance policy, making sure that we keep our employees as happy and as safe and as healthy as they can be while they're working with us. ERISA is something that comes up at the end of this chapter. Employee Retirement Income Security Act. This came about in 1973. This states that employees have protection for wages once they're retired, knowing that they have funds that they have paid into, that they will become available for them upon severance with the organization. There's some terminology. There's a great slide, slide 22, that breaks down employee benefit plans, what is a pension plan, really defines contributions, benefits. Human resources is the leading factor for any kind of employee wages, benefits within the organization. We want to make sure we make all that information as available to our employees as possible, and letting them know we have an open door policy. So if you have questions, come and see us. 2 more terms that I want to throw at you before we wrap up this chapter. COBRA. This is insurance that's available to a tenured employee, to a severant employee, up to 18 months of post-termination coverage of your insurance carrier. It does cost more to the employee. It doesn't carry on at the same rates, but it tends to be a little bit better than paying for private insurance or having no insurance. And then the concept of HIPAA. This is just a quick gloss. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. Every time you go to your doctor's office, your physician, they'll have you sign some sort of HIPAA release. As an organization, whatever information is being shared with us from the employee, whether it's wages, social security information, their home address, all of that needs to be protected and not given out unless we've spoken with the employee. So chapter 16 has a lot in it. I try to keep these videos short. We're already at almost 9 minutes. It's been a great 11 weeks with you guys. You're doing a tremendous job. As we wrap this up, please let me know if you have questions. I'll start working on finalizing grades. Don't forget to submit your final paper and presentation. Talk to you soon.